Welcome to the conversation. Today we're going to talk about innovation. Now, innovating, or rather the habit of innovating, you all know is already a key to success. And every client I'm talking to today is looking for more and more and more innovation. And they're trying to drive it deeper and deeper and deeper in the organization. So what we want to spend our time today is to try to understand what it takes to truly create a culture of innovation so that you're building upon success, upon success, upon success, not a one-shot wonder, a one big surprise that changes everything, and then we wobble back to status quo. And that means that we're going to ask, what do you need to be doing to lead teams that actually innovate? And we're going to do this with some very particular examples, which I find pretty interesting and pretty exciting. And these come from Microsoft. And what they're going to highlight is both some obstacles, some opportunities, some pathways, some tools that Microsoft has used over 50 years to kind of make sure that they are consistently innovating. Whether you love Microsoft, don't love Microsoft isn't the point. You can't deny that they've been incredibly successful, and part of that is down to innovation. So my guest today is JoAnn Garbin. She's a sustainability and technology entrepreneur with a 25-year track record of leading teams that go from nothing to something to scale, creating numerous innovative products and profitable businesses. And during her tenure as Director of Innovation at Microsoft, she was in Microsoft's cloud business and guided her team in developing $1 billion opportunities, including the regenerative data center of the future. Since 2024, she's founded Regenerous Labs, which is a collaboration committed to creating cross-sector transformations. And with that, we're talking about JoAnn and Dean Carrignan's, I'm not going to stumble on his name, Dean Carrignan's brand new book, The Insider's Guide to Innovation at Microsoft. So, JoAnn, welcome. I'm excited to talk to you.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Certainly.
Obviously representing me and Dean.
Obviously, representing it well, no doubt, for sure. All right, so Dean is also at Microsoft, I don't know if he's still there or not, also in the innovation space. Why did the two of you decide to write this book?
It came about as two people that practice innovation, but in very different paths. Him predominantly as an entrepreneur. He's been at Microsoft now 21 years. Me as an entrepreneur. 2/3 of my career has been out building businesses and trading stories and finding a lot in common, which made us start to wonder, are there foundational practices of innovation that transcend time, tech, industry, scale, you name it? And so we set about researching that. And what better place than Microsoft, who has a 50-year track record? It's a business of businesses. You know, it's been valuable since its start and has been a world leader for decades.
Yeah. And you don't often think, because you think about Microsoft as just doing, Microsoft Office, for example, or some versions of those. They've added tons of products to the suite.
Yeah.
And a couple ones that we're going to talk about, like Xbox and some new data services. So it's many, many, many different pieces that come together to create the Microsoft we know today.
Yeah.
All right. I'm curious, was there anything as you were researching all of these products and processes that surprised you?
There were so many little surprises and big. I think one of my favorites, though, is the Bing story.
Okay.
As somebody new to Microsoft and, just like everybody else, I Googled things. I didn't Bing things. There's always this idea of, why do we keep Bing around?
Yeah.
But then you learn their story and the strategic decisions that went into why we keep Bing around. And I'm not going to spoil it for everybody, but it's really cool. And I will say, because we talk about this a lot now, without Bing, we wouldn't have had the OpenAI moment we had in 2022, and we wouldn't be in the position we're in today with generative AI.
Right, right. That's interesting. I think about clients in the telecommunications space who kept kept hardware to be specifically, that they were probably not well suited to do. And from a business point of view, ultimately isn't going to play out to be the best decision that they're going to make.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they felt very, very strongly that if they didn't keep that hardware, they wouldn't have the right place in which to experiment with the stuff that they thought they were truly innovative about. So I'm imagining that some of the Bing story is much the same.
It's a bit of that, yep. And it's really how the model of innovation that Bing adopted. So we hear a lot about big companies adopting venture studios or just investing external like we did in OpenAI. The really neat thing in Microsoft is we found 7 different flavors of innovation organization in the company. And Bing is one where they themselves are an incubator, and then they distribute their technology and their solutions to all of the other products in Microsoft, and therefore bring everybody along the journey much faster. So it's just interesting to see how they didn't have to go outside the walls to create the infrastructure for generative AI. They used Bing.
Okay. I love that. So you keep it in-house. You're doing experiments in-house, even if it's not your most competitive product, that experiments internally, and the ability to distribute them across the organization and have others adopt them is a secret sauce that allows other products, including the OpenAI, to succeed.
And you get an automatic audience of billions of users.
Yes.
Which is incredible.
Which is incredible. It's really, truly incredible. All right. What I want to do is dig into 3 particular stories. They're the 3 that I find fascinating. Bing isn't one of them, but that's a separate story. There are many other stories in this book, but what you do in the book is you take some products and then dive into the story of what happened. And the one I want to go back to is Xbox. All right. Particularly interested in this one because at the start of this, no one would have said that Microsoft needs to be in the gaming business. You were in the Office products, and in fact, Bill Gates at the time was very adamant that we are not in the hardware production, we are in the software production. But Xbox requires creating a thing, a box, a hardware, and in some ways without anything from Microsoft's suite.
Right.
So tell me what happened. Tell me about the story and what are the implications of that for innovation?
So Xbox is really cool in so many ways. Not just, we always joke, not just the games. The games are awesome. But what they did was they saw an existential threat in Sony back in the day. Sony was taking over the home. So TVs and audio and PlayStation. And so there was this question mark of, could they jump into the home office? And if they jump into the home office, are they going to jump into PCs and then productivity software? So that was the driving fear or question. And back then, Paul Allen and Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, mostly Steve and Bill, they had this. They would spin up multiple teams to solve a problem, and may the best one win.
Yep.
So one team went the way they thought Bill and Steve wanted them to go. Microsoft hardware, Microsoft Windows, build a game platform on top of it. The other team was a group of gamers, and they were like, no, we want to build the best gaming experience. And so they were like, we can't do that with Windows, and we can't do that with the hardware we have. So these 2 teams show up, and I credit one really core principle of the winning team, which was the team that went against Microsoft and said, no Windows, none of your hardware. We don't even want your logo on the box. We don't even want to be on your campus. We're going to go down the street and start a new campus, and our email is going to be at xbox.com, not at Microsoft. Like, they're like totally separate. But their driving mission was leading with experience, what we shorthand to say lead with X. They're like, we are going to create a game experience for both the gamer and the game developer that is going to crush all of the other game developers, right? Like all of the other console developers. And they sold that and they stuck true to it, even with, which anybody will tell you, Bill and Steve could be pretty intense. Like they will get in your face and like force you to fight for what you believe in. And they did, and they survived it. And this is the upside of Bill and Steve. They gave them $1 billion over the next couple years to go and build it. So it's just this great story of knowing your user, knowing your market, and refusing to do anything less than what you know they want and need.
It's interesting that one of the things that I find fascinating about the Xbox story is how persuasive they were, okay? And how they use their passion and conviction to be persuasive. And they're doing what any business leader would say, of course you should do, which is starting with who the user is going to be and what their experience is going to be and sticking to that really, really tightly and solidly. But they also managed to create a culture there that was a little bit unique. I mean, no logo on the box, no Microsoft address, not even in the same building. Talk to me about how important that culture was for their success.
Well, what's really interesting is their culture is something they innovate constantly. So over the 20 years they've existed, every time they've had a paradigm shift in their product offering or their business model. So think about it. Back in the day, you would buy a console, you would buy a game disc, and it was a one-for-one purchase. Move to today where it's gaming on any device, cloud gaming, and subscription, all you can play. So you can play your friends that are playing on PlayStation, etc. And there were 2 other transitions in between. Every single time they fit their culture, they reinvented their culture to fit the new business. And so what that means is they treat culture like a product. So in the beginning, when they needed to be scrappy and they needed that passion and they needed to like dig their heels in and get what they wanted from Microsoft to build this platform, it was Robbie Bach, the early leader of it, called it a mosh pit. It was gamers. But then as they quickly swelled in ranks and they were bringing in people from entertainment and across Microsoft and other industries, they couldn't be a mosh pit. They needed to transform themselves into an organization that could hire for culture add, not culture fit, because they needed all of these different talents to bring this product from a scrappy startup phase into a scale phase. And they needed to keep that close connection with the user, but then they needed much larger organizations to deliver against that. So each iteration, they put headcount to culture. And these people were not HR people. They were product people. Juliana and Kate are 2 that we call out in the book. And Juliana Tiawanda and Kate Liu, they're the first 2 culture hires in Microsoft Xbox. And they did what we all do in product. They're going to go out and empathize. And then they're going to ideate. They're going to prototype. They're going to test. They're going to iterate. And that's what they've been doing now for years. So their former boss, Kareem, said, you know, I can tell you how important something is by how much headcount and dollars you have toward it. And so they invested in culture innovation.
So they go out and treat the culture like a product. So we're going to go out and test what kind of culture we need, what works. We're going to prototype it with a small group, see if it does, if it doesn't. Yep. We're going to roll it back. We're going to scale it. We're going to measure it. We're going to do all the things that we would do to build a product. Only the product is the culture.
Exactly.
And the culture is adapted to what we need to do at this moment in time. Yes. For our users, front and central. For our game developers, also front and center and for where we are in the growth of the business.
Exactly.
Okay? That is an amazingly tall order because I think most people, at best, when they're looking at innovation, say, oh, yeah, we need a culture, or we have a culture, or it just emerges. This notion about being intentional with culture and matching that intention with what is needed in the moment, that's it's a pretty big order. Okay.
It's interesting too because when you look at innovation over the years, we broke the back half of the book into four patterns every day over the years with everyone and beyond technology. And they're artificial divides. We had to, break it up to make it, digestible. To achieve the over the year, you have to achieve innovation beyond technology.
Yeah.
And that upstream innovation, organizational structures and processes and tools and who your partners are, those determine downstream success. You got to innovate upstream to succeed downstream. And so Xbox is a wonderful, all of the stories honestly have that in them, but Xbox is where we called it out distinctly.
Right. It's very clear in the writing of that particular story. And that's the reason I wanted to start with it, because I think it's the thing we think about the least. I think we think about the idea. Maybe we think about the idea in terms of the customer, maybe, if we're really good. If we think about disruption, we certainly do that. And then, we don't think about what's going to be persuasive, and we certainly don't think about what's going to be, what the culture needs to be of a whole, let alone the structures and processes to make it happen. All right, let's shift to a next story.
Okay.
So the move from Microsoft Office as a product that you buy to a thing that becomes a subscription. All right. Now, this is like in 2018, I think the data you give in the book is that the Microsoft product is earning something like 30 billion a year. I don't know if that's a revenue or an earning number, but that's a massive number regardless what you say. So you've got a brilliantly successful product. And they decide to change the model. Why? How did this happen? What was that about?
Yeah. Yeah, they were 30 billion and they had no real competition.
Competition, yeah.
So it wasn't like somebody was nipping at their heels, threatening to take business from them. What had happened was they had gone through an engineering revolution. So with the move from physical product to cloud product, you also change your release cycles. So you go from maybe once a year, or some of our products were 3 years, like Windows,
Yeah.
to once a month. And some of our products even more rapidly than that. So when Office completed that engineering transition to be a monthly release, and now the feature list wasn't what's going to be the thing that sells the user, right? They're not looking at a box with features listed down the front and going, oh, this one has 10 more than that one, I'm going to buy this one. Now it's, I pay 10 bucks a month or whatever it is, and I either use the product or I don't. And so Sumit, who was the head of the Office product, she led that engineering transition. And at the other side of it, she's like, okay, now that we have this platform where we can do things quicker and we can experiment more, I want to see who's actually using which features. And they changed their metric from engineering scope, schedule, budget. That was their metric of success for decades. They changed it to kept rate, meaning, are the users actually using the functionality and keeping the help that we provide them? Like if we complete a sentence, are they keeping it? If we design a slide, are they keeping it? And so that combination of being able to test things and measure whether or not the user is using it just changed how they operated. So now they could experiment more often. They put a ban on features. They were like, no new features. Was what they found out was in those early experiments, a lot of the things they built all those years were not being used. So you have this big suite of tools, which means you have a lot of code, which means you have a lot of overhead. So from an engineering perspective, hard to maintain, debug, and keep current. And you don't have anybody using it. So for them, it was an engineering efficiency gain as well as a customer delight gain to just say, hold up, no new features. Let's uncover the value we've already created, see if anybody uses it. And if they do, we'll keep it. If they don't, we may mothball it. We may sunset it, right? And if nobody complains that you've taken something away, then you don't need to
You don't need it.
carry that load anymore. So
Yeah.
really, really ambitious, but very pragmatic strategy of just how do we delight the customer and run a really efficient, huge organization.
Yeah. It's well, the number one complaint, well, the thing that no one that I talk to does is, what are we mothballing? People will ask that question, but they don't actually go and do it because they don't actually have the data to know, is this a thing that we should or should not stop doing? So applaud them, and I applaud her for actually putting in place the ability to ask that question and then answer it. So really, really cool. But it's interesting. So again, I have this relentless pursuit of what the customer is looking for, what the customer is really needing, what they're really truly using, what's adding value, and a deeper analysis of the value chain. And in fact, I know that's one of your patterns. So talk for just a minute about how this whole value chain analysis shows up in this case.
So for this one, we focused on the design, the strategic design aspect of what they pulled off. We didn't actually go deep into the engineering side of it.
Right.
What we really found unique and valuable for this, I think they were 20 at the time when they undertook this. They went from being an engineering led product to an engineering and design led product. So they promoted design to equal status as engineering, which meant instead of building something and then handing it to designers and saying, make it look pretty, which is like, you're missing the whole
Right.
point, they brought design and marketing to the front of the innovation process and said, what is the story we want to be able to tell the user? How does that need to function? How does our product need to function to deliver that story? And then how do we build it? And that connected the dots between the user and every developer in the team seamlessly, right? And so they had a whole bunch of other mechanisms that they introduced to get everybody into the conversation, to see how their pieces and parts fit together. But that was really it. How do we tell the story that the user is going to respond to, deliver the product that delivers the story? And the way they did it was by connecting design, marketing, and engineering.
Especially for having worked with a number of engineering-oriented companies, to get them to make that transition is no small feat.
Right.
There are plenty of people who talk about it, but to truly pull it off is incredible. So we're going to put this in the context of innovation, not in terms of steady state or maintenance operations kind of thing. What else do we need to add or change or do differently or next generation or so on? And we're going to force at the beginning marketing and design to come together so we articulate what is it we want to tell our users they're going to get, in effect, from staying with us, using us. Exactly. And then how do we build that thing that's going to get us there?
Yeah. And PowerPoint is one we probably all will recognize.
Yeah.
PowerPoint was one of the first products to have AI deployed in it in a meaningful way, like beyond rules-based AI, like generative AI. and it's in the designer feature. So it used to be we all did our best to design a good looking
Yeah.
slide, and most of us came up very short. And you would fight with it for a half an hour and try your best, right?
Mhm.
And Smith has this great quote in the book. She's like, I said to the team, no one wants to spend a half an hour building a slide. They don't do it because they like it, they do it because they have to.
Have to.
And that was the challenge to the team. How do we give them one click to stunning? How can they
Hmm.
drop their photo and their text on the slide and we give them the laid out, beautiful design, and all they got to do is pick it?
Hmm.
And that was Designer, the very first iteration of PowerPoint design. And when Bill Gates saw it, he said it was the best implementation of AI he had seen to date because it
Okay.
was doing what AI is meant to do, which is
Yeah.
make us all perform better than we
Mhm.
can do on our
Right.
own.
Right. Okay, so were there secrets? I mean, did this just happen seamlessly because everybody's so used to asking these kind of questions, or did the leaders of this group do something special to bring engineering and design and marketing together? I mean, they don't even speak the same language. How did they pull this off?
Yeah, it takes time. People do not change quickly.
Hmm.
And that's a thing we talk about in depth in pattern three. People, we tend to go through a very predictable path of behavior change.
Right.
And the office team did years of research on this, and they ended up framing it, they named it Think, Feel, Act. But
Hmm.
in reality, we feel, act, think.
Yeah.
And so what they recognized is, and there's tons of behavioral science studies to support this, and we give a framework in the book to navigate it. The very first thing you got to do is excite people about that future and show them how they're going to benefit from it and what they're going to feel from it. And so the leadership team recognized that to bring this engineering org along, they needed to meet them where they were at and show them what was possible. And
Hmm.
so the great thing about including designers in your process is they know how to draw things. They know how to bring things to life very quickly. And so a lot of it was just getting to the table together, drawing the ideas, putting them on the table so everybody's looking at the same thing. So now you're not imagining different scenarios, you're actually looking at something together, and now you can start co creating it. And over
Co-creating.
time, that built trust between engineering and design and marketing and leadership. And they just slowly expanded the circle to bring more and more of the organization in until the whole thing was running that way.
But it's an interesting one to start. So we always talk about how to get everybody on the same page, right? And it's easy to use the words, and we still think we're on the same page, but actually we're all on very different pages because those words mean very different things to us.
Yeah.
With a bunch of designers in the room, we can get closer to what that might actually look like. So we can draw it, we can prototype it, we can whatever, storyboard it, script it a little bit better. So we really do see what is possible. When you see what's possible is where you get the excitement and the feeling and the emotion,
Yeah.
the
Even if the thing you
enthusiasm.
put on the table is totally wrong, that's great. Because at least you're all disagreeing about the same thing.
Thing. Right.
You can point out what's wrong, can explain yourselves. And the more you do that, the more you get in the habit of speaking up in front of each other and saying, no, I don't like that, or no, that wouldn't work from the technical perspective, or no, the user's expecting this. The more you can have that healthy conflict in the open with each other, that actually builds that trust that
Yeah.
you need
Yeah.
to run fast and
Right.
innovate.
Well, and seeing successes builds trust. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, that would be fun. And the emotion builds a little bit of trust.
Yeah.
You got many pieces coming together that allows that team to just go from strength, 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 strength.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. I could appreciate any team. You bring groups from different perspectives together. if you can get to see the value that the other group is bringing, then we tend to have a really good conversation. So this is fascinating to me that you did it with engineers, marketers, and designers. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, let's go to cognitive services. And the part about cognitive services I am so fascinated with is this notion of extreme collaboration. So explain what happened, what was going on, and how did this all work?
So, this, to set the context of when this happened, this was shortly after Google just hit it out of the park with search and left us in the dust, and nobody could touch them. And then the 1-2 punch of iPhone and Android. So Microsoft just had these big misses, these big strategic misses. And the mobile was kind of the last one of just like, if anybody should have won an operating system war, it should have been Microsoft. But they looked around and they were like, okay, we're not going to get the search data revenue, and we're not going to get the mobile platform revenue. But maybe we can get the mobile developers. Like, we love building developer tools. We love building platforms. We've got Azure, we've got Bing, and we've got Microsoft Research, who has spent years investing in AI research and developing thousands of patents. And so Harry Shum, who was an executive in the company at the time, looked at these three pieces and he's like, all right, we have these three pieces. What can we do with them? And what they figured out, he and Yutin Kwa, who's another strategic leader in the company, they said, these mobile developers that have emerged in this cloud environment, they don't have the infrastructure and the AI chops to really utilize it in mobile applications. But maybe we can create AI as a service, which was not a thing then. Now we take it for granted. But AI as a service, and enable them to embed our AI in their mobile apps. And we don't care what platform they're on, iPhone or Android, doesn't matter to us. And so to do that, though, they couldn't spin up an organization fast enough. They didn't have the money or the head count. They were given like 3 or 4 months to go from nothing to something. So what they did was they got a handful of junior program managers. These are people that tend to coordinate, right? They're not coders. They're not developers. They're connectors. And they're like, go find us everybody we need, bring them together, and get it done. And that's what they did. They took 10% of a researcher's time from one group and 15% of an engineer's time from another group. And they stitched together about 100 people that effectively, when you took the percentage of time, amounted to about a 20-person full-time team. But they had all these different talent sets from these different products that they could weave together all those pieces and parts kind of littered around the company to create AI as a service. And they did it in 4 months. And in the course of doing so, they overcame like 6 long-time challenges in the AI world, like face recognition and voice to speech or speech to text and all of these different challenges. So that's why we call it extreme collaboration. It's like when you have 7 lines of businesses brought together in fractional resources by a handful of program managers with 5 years or less experience. That was just fascinating.
It is, I think it's fascinating. And I think in so many cases, this level of extreme collaboration is exactly what we need to do to find the innovating solution. And then you find the thing, you build the thing like AI as a service, and you realize, oh, wait, it's got many more legs and it needs lots more support and blah, 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 blah. And then we build out the structure from that. So, but geez, how many people love being part of this? But the number one bane, I've got 100 people from which I want 10% of their time or 20% of their time. that's the worst place to be in, because whatever it is I'm asking of them goes to the bottom of the barrel, because why are they getting rewarded for it? Their manager is not in the loop. How did you get everybody committed, 100 people committed to give marginal time?
Yeah. They called far more than 100 people and
Okay.
got told no a lot. And they just said, okay, not a problem, next. And went to the next person. Hey, we're doing this thing. You want in? They built that excitement. They had people self-select into the project that saw the vision and wanted to do this thing. And that's that early adopter mindset,
Right.
right? Every product goes through it, whether it's internal or external with your customer. So they just look for their early adopters. And because Harry Shum and Yu Ting were involved, everybody knew there was executive visibility to this. And then they did something really cool at the other side. These 6 program managers gave all the credit away. They
Ah,
didn't take any credit for themselves. They were like, oh no, this group over here couldn't have done it without him. And that group over there, they even did that with people that were like, no, I can't help you. They were like, oh, they were super helpful. They pointed us to this other place and la la la. And that built goodwill. And then people started seeing the reward for working with the group. And again, it just created a positive feedback loop of excitement and personal investment. And it was at no risk to the handful of program managers, because Harry, being an executive, saw what they were doing. And when it came time for promotions and bonuses, he was in the room
you know,
saying, these 6 people,
yeah, yeah,
they pulled it off.
yeah. That's the, I mean, I watch this all the time with people all over where they're afraid to give away credit because they want credit for what they have done and organized. All right. That's where you keep your stakeholders highly informed on who you're calling, how you're calling, what you're asking, what's working, what's not working. They know what you've done now to pull it together. They don't need to see the action at the end of the day. In fact, what they want to see is that you're giving credit for people who actually contributed. And that creates a pull for more people to get involved. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I don't know
It
how 6
takes,
junior program managers figured this out, but man, is that smart.
well, it does take involvement, like active engagement from the executive as well.
Okay.
You can't be a passive leader. Harry and Yu Ting were in there with the team, coaching them, guiding them. They didn't tell them what to do or how to
Yeah.
get it done, but they knew what was going on and they cheered them along and championed them at every turn.
Yeah.
They put
Yeah.
them on stage demoing these things on our biggest product stages, like the Build conference every year. Some of the, Anna Roth is quoted as saying, she's like, I was like 6 years in with no program management experience. And she's like, and I'm demoing product next to Satya.
Yeah.
Like they gave them that experience and they gave them that trust and exposure. So a lot of leaders, I think, they want the innovation, but then they check out and they're like, oh, I got my innovation team. They're doing it. Harry and Yu Ting were in there and they knew what was going on. And that was critical.
But not in their controlling.
Not
They're
controlling.
in their coaching.
Coach,
Try
not
this
direct.
strategy, do that. Here's what I want you to do with that person. Here's this phone call that you make. Here's what you say. That level of coaching so that people know, oh, yeah, Harry wants me to give away credit for it. Okay, all right, then I'll do that.
Yeah.
So much easier than if it's hands off. Okay, there are many, many more stories. We've already teased the Bing story, and there are several others. I want to ask you one question. So many people believe that at the end of the day, the big innovation is due to the lone genius. All right, so and there's some geniuses in the stories that you've told, but they never come as a single person. They always come as pairs, twos or threes people who kind of saw the vision, but then didn't do it by themselves. What's your experience with this lone genius story?
If there was one myth we all hope dies, it's that one. It is there even the truly genius folks like Bill Gates. I mean, there's no doubt genius. He had to build a company to bring his ideas to life. There's never one person that's getting it done. Even in the generative AI world where, Sam Altman's predicting a one-person billion-dollar company, that one person's going to use products built by thousands of people. And we're all influenced by thousands of people. So that's a marketing ploy. And anybody that buys into it is just taking credit for everybody else's work.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we found again and again in the 40 contributors for our book. So we even say, like, even our book, like, I can look at any single page and there were probably a dozen people that contributed to that page of the book, just producing it. We say that, the 40 people we interviewed and all of the people that they talked about, everybody had their team and they appreciated all of the different talents it takes to change a customer's life, which is, as some of the one of our contributors, the head of the developer division, Julia Lewson, said, if you're not changing a customer's life, it's not innovation. It's just a cool idea. And that's a big distinction too, the difference between idea, invention, and innovation. Innovation has all of that business and go-to-market and customer interaction wrapped around whatever the invention is. It's hard enough to go from idea to invention, but then you got to make it real. You got to make a business out of it.
Yeah. Even, as you listen to the stories, there may be a spark of where an opportunity came from. And that spark may come from one or two people. But it's never really developed. It's never really pushed. It's never really expanded. It's never fully fleshed out as I have this vision, everybody get behind me, in isolation. It's always in this amalgam of lots of people coming together.
Yes.
Yeah. Because without that, you just don't get the grist that makes it really great.
No, and every great thing we encounter in life had a lot of different people involved in it. And I think, I come from the entrepreneurial world. One of the mistakes entrepreneurs make in the early phases of what they're doing is they don't bring enough people in. Like they protect their idea and they keep it secret. They're afraid somebody's going to steal it. Nobody has the time to steal other people's ideas, generally speaking. I mean, don't go and pitch it to Amazon and, like, if it's a really good product for Amazon to build, or Microsoft, or anybody with a lot of money and a lot of people.
Yeah.
But bring your friends together, share it over a pizza, get different perspectives. Doing that divergent exploration of whatever light bulb moment you had, I guarantee you will find a different angle on it, and it'll probably be a much more robust business angle than your first assumption. Because that's all an idea is. It's an assumption, and you got to challenge those.
Right. I love it. Fascinating. All right, so my watchwords. A, you're not doing it alone. Divergent thinking means more people involved, means more perspective, means openness to exploration. Collaboration is heart and soul. Can't do it without that level of collaboration. Culture, thinking very carefully about the culture you need to drive this kind of solution in this moment in time for this product at this level. This notion of constant reinvention, whether you're at the top of the game with zero competitors, looking at that, where's the customer need and what do I need to be doing and what's the story we need to change and so on. And bringing people together who have very different perspectives. I come back to the designers, the engineers, and the marketers to understand what it is we need to be able to tell, and then therefore how do we tell it. I'm certain I didn't get all of and the emotions. Emotions as a way of exciting and igniting. Certain I didn't get all the points in the book. There's so many fabulous insights and stories. Thank you so much, JoAnn, for being a guest.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. The book, again, is called The Insider's Guide to Innovation at Microsoft. The first half of it is going to give you the stories. The second half is going to give you the principles, lots of tools and tactics along the way. And my guest today is JoAnn Garbin. JoAnn, if people want to reach you, where could they find you?
Yeah, the best place is www.innovation@microsoft.com. That'll link through to our LinkedIn profiles and everything else, but you can learn more about the book, and you'll see that all proceeds are going to STEAM education charities.
Wonderful.
And we have a community of ongoing conversation and additional bonus chapters.
Love it. Even better one. Okay, fantastic. Thank you again, JoAnn. And thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. Go to outofthecomfortzone.com. Send me an email. Send me a comment. Like us on your favorite podcast provider, wherever that is. Check out our brand new YouTube channel, Out of the Comfort Pod. I think you'll find us pretty easily there. And definitely join us next week for another episode in Getting Out of Your Comfort Zone.